The Municipality of Anchorage Platting Board Authority will now come to order. It is April 4th, 2018 at 6:30. May we have roll call?
Valerie Ritz.
Present.
Don Porter.
Present.
Clayton Walker.
Present.
Becky Lipson.
Present.
Mark Seward.
Present.
Kevin Cross.
Present.
Christina Enix, Dan Young, and Jana Weltzen have been excused. Thank you.
We will first turn to the action summary for Wednesday, March 7th, 2018. May I have a motion approving the action summary? Kevin Cross moves, and Don Porter has seconded. Is there any opposition to approving the action summary? Seeing no opposition, the motion passes. We'll now turn to minutes for Wednesday, March 7th, 2018. May I have a motion to approve the minutes as drafted? Kevin Cross has moved, and Becky Lipson has seconded the motion. Are there any amendments or changes anyone wishes to offer towards the minutes? Seeing none, and seeing no opposition to the minutes, the motion to approve the minutes passes. Next, we'll turn to special order of business. The first item is disclosures. Does anyone have disclosures for the matters being heard this evening? Becky Lipson.
Thank you. My firm has worked for petitioner's representative S4 Group, whose tonight's proposal is S12380 in the past. I have no involvement with this case. I have no knowledge beyond what was provided in the packet. I have no financial motives and can be fair and impartial and ask to be permitted to vote.
Thank you. May I have a motion directing Becky Lipson to participate in case S12380? Kevin Cross moves, and Don Porter is seconded. Kevin, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, I move that Becky Lipson participate in S12387, Pellinor subdivision, lots 1 through 10, block 1, tracks F2, F3, and block 2. Becky has stated that she has no financial gain, that although she has previously represented the client, she can remain impartial, unbiased, and exude clear judgment.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to offer any findings on the motion? Seeing none, is there any opposition to the motion? Seeing no opposition, the motion passes. Becky Lipson, you are directed to participate in case S12380. Did you have any further disclosures, Ms. Lipson? Thank you. Mark Seward.
Through the chair, in Pellinor sub case S12380, there's some reference to a previous plat that was submitted. It was approved in June of 2004. I had done the work on that plat for the previous owner, the original homesteader. I have no interest, personal or business-wise, in the current process with the owners there, but my name could show up on that during the process. And I could have an unbiased judgment on any conditions of the plat.
Thank you. May I have a motion directing Mark Seward to participate in case S12380? Don Porter has moved, and Kevin Cross seconded. Don, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, in the case of, I apologize, 12380, I believe, I move to direct Mark to participate. He's indicated that he's had previous knowledge, but he has no substantial part of this directive and can remain impartial.
Thank you. I think he actually stated he has no interest in this action. So not. Yeah. Is there anyone else wishing to offer any findings on this motion? Is there any opposition? Seeing no opposition, the motion passes. Mark Seward, you're directed to participate in case S12380. Are there any other disclosures? We'll now turn to the abbreviated plats for summaries for March 12th and March 19. And they are just informational items that should appear in the minutes. The Platting Board meets each month on the first and third Wednesday, except holidays, as regular meetings. If the Platting Board fails to complete the entire agenda for a regular meeting, we will carry over the remainder of the agenda to the following meeting. The procedure by which the public may speak to the Platting Board at this meeting is after the staff's presentation is completed on the public hearing items, I will ask for public testimony on the issue. People who wish to testify will follow the time limits established in the Commission Rules of Procedure. Petitioners get to go first. They're given 10 minutes. They may reserve part of their time for rebuttal. Representatives of groups, community councils, PTAs get 5 minutes. Individuals are given 3 minutes. When your testimony is complete, the board may ask you questions. You may only testify once on an issue unless questioned further by the board. Any individual may have appeal rights relating to the action the Platting Board takes. Appeal of this decision or any of the conditions is governed by Anchorage Municipal Code 21.11.304. The decision of the board at this scheduled meeting becomes final 7 calendar days after the decision is made on the record, unless a written request is submitted to the Platting Division prior to the expiration of the 7th day to prepare a written decision based upon the record made at the hearing, and the request is accompanied by notice of intent to appeal. Adoption of the written decision by Platting Board becomes the final appealable decision. Within 20 days of the final appealable decision, an interested party must file with the municipal clerk either a written motion alleging new evidence or changed circumstances pursuant to Anchorage Municipal Code 21.11.503, or an appeal of the board's final appealable decision under 2130. And with that, we will now turn to the new business. May we have staff's presentation of case S12380.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a request to subdivide 2 lots and 4 tracts into 10 lots and 2 tracts with vacation of a 20-foot right-of-way north of tract F1 and a 20-foot right-of-way south of tract B, and a variance from AMC 21.08.05A1 improvements to not construct a portion of right-of-way along Bernard Drive and Burt Circle. So the petition site is located along Bernard Drive, north of Stewart Mountain Drive, and west of the intersection of Elnora Lane and Bernard Drive in the Eagle River Highland area. The property is zoned Chuyaki River R6, that's low-density residential district, and the proposed lots and tracts meet the minimum lot size area and width requirements of the dimensional standards for Chuyaki Eagle River residential districts. There are no objections by the reviewing agencies to this platting action, the vacation of a 20-foot right-of-ways, or to the variance to not construct the portion of right-of-way along Bernard Drive. A 50-foot access easement and a 20-foot drainage easement will be dedicated by the plat that accesses the airstrip to the north between lots 5 and 6. Tract F2 currently obtains access from Stewart Mountain Drive. The applicant has clarified the structure on tract F3 will be removed, and any new structure will obtain access from Stewart Mountain Drive. There are wetland mapping discrepancies between various agencies that will need to be resolved with the planning department as a condition, with resolved with Watershed Management Services and the appropriate agencies. The petitioner has requested to vacate 2 separate 20-foot wide right-of-way identified as A on the preliminary plat, which is a 20-foot section of alley internal to tracts F3 and F2. The 20-foot alley is dedicated per the plat along the northern boundary of the 2 tracts in lieu of that vacation of that portion. This section connects to the existing alley that runs east to west along the southern boundary of the proposed subdivision. The second 20-foot section identified as B is located along the northern boundary of the subdivision across proposed lots 1 through 6. It also includes the eastern 20 feet of lot 6, which will be vacated and replaced with a 20-foot drainage easement and a 50-foot access easement that is located between lots 5 and 6. Private development, right-of-way, and the municipal traffic department stated there is no objection to the vacation of these two 20-foot right-of-way sections. The vacation request has been reviewed and found to conform to the municipal vacation policy, standards 1 through 6. The current preliminary plat is requesting the vacation of the right-of-way and dedicating a new 20-foot right-of-way. This will provide any future needs of the public for recreational access. The 20-foot right-of-way denoted as B is not constructed and is located across a slope. A 50-foot access easement is dedicated in lieu of that by this plat along the eastern side of the subdivision. The remaining property is served by existing rights-of-way. The original 20-foot rights-of-way were not created for secondary access purposes, but for recreational purposes. There's a plat note on the plat that states all 20-foot alleys dedicated for recreational purpose, and the intent was to use those that way. Pedestrian access is adequately served with the dedication of new access easements and alley. Currently, there is access to the Eagle River Greenbelt along the west and east side of the subdivision. In addition, a 50-foot access easement is dedicated to access the runway. Generally, the reviewing agencies had no comment or objection. Therefore, staff believes that the right-of-way is in excess of municipal need and recommends approval of this vacation subject to the conditions. For the variance request, the petitioner is requesting a variance from AMC 21.08.050A1. That's improvements to not construct a portion of the right-of-way along Bernard Drive. The petitioner is requesting that the improvements along the western boundary and Bernard Drive and Burt Circle to not be constructed. They supplied a diagram that outlines the sections of road to not be constructed. That is located on page, it looks like it's 22 of the staff packet. The eastern area to the temporary turnaround will be constructed with street improvement standards as required by code. And that includes a 20-foot wide strip paved or gravel street as shown on the typical section 21 of the Municipality of Anchorage standard specifications. And that will run from Elnora Lane to the 50-foot temporary turnaround easement located on proposed lots 3 and 9. The Bernard Drive improvements shall terminate in an asphalt or gravel surface cul-de-sac. The application for the variance to construct has met standards A, B, C, and D. Standard A has been met. A large portion of the development resides within an area of steep terrain, substantial surface drainage, poor soils, and shallow subsurface flows. Analysis of these areas indicate that residential home construction was not supported along those portions of the western half of the subdivision. This large lot configuration allows for legal and physical access to be accommodated with the construction of the portion of Bernard Road. Standard B is met. The existing 60-foot right-of-way for Bernard Drive will remain in place, and this right-of-way will be open to use by public as it currently is used with a gravel surface that varies in width from 20 feet to approximately 11 feet. Standard C has been met. The proposed subdivision has many unique features and constraints that meet the intent of the variance standards. The variance allows the petitioner to subdivide and develop difficult parcels of land that exist within the subdivision. The proposed lots 3 through 9 will be accessed by the portion of road that will be constructed by the petitioner. Standard D has been met. So this variance reflects the agreed upon development requirements. The petitioner had multiple meetings with traffic department, fire, right-of-way, private development, and the planning department. The petitioner then adjusted their previous platting action to, they had to adjust Lot 1 and Lot 10 to allow for the variance and required improvements to be allowed. The petitioner will be required to construct that eastern portion of Bernard Drive by entering into a subdivision agreement with the municipality. The level of street development that will be constructed is consistent and in like manner to adjacent surrounding roads. Generally, reviewing agencies had no comment or no objection to the variance request. Staff recommends approval of the variance subject to the conditions found on page 17. So the department recommendation for that is the A, approval of the request for vacation with one condition. B, approval of the variance from AMC 2108-050A1 improvements, subject to one condition found on page 18, and approval of the plat for 24 months. C, subject to 1 through 11 conditions found on page 18, 19, and 20. There's actually 12, 1 through 12. With that, the petitioner and petitioner representatives here, and I can answer any questions you may have of staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions of staff at this time? May we have the petitioner's representative?
Hello, Chairman, members of the board. My name is Craig Bennett, B-E-N-N-E-T-T, with S4 Group. I'm representing the petitioner, and also with me this evening is Dave Grenier with Triad Engineering. Sean did a thorough job of it, and I'll just be brief. We're requesting subdivision, taking 6 existing parcels and subdividing it into 12 proposed. Seeking to vacate a 20-foot recreational right-of-way and then modify, vacate and then rededicate another section of the 20-foot recreational right-of-way. And variance to construct a portion of right-of-way along Bernard Drive. As Sean said, we've been working with the municipality since July of last year, 4 or 5 meetings with all the departments to go over. We started off with vacating all of Bernard Drive, and we had some more lots on the west. Then came back through some staff recommendations and partial vacation of Bernard Drive, 1 less lot, and now the final is no vacation of Bernard Drive. Few less lots, but seems the best case. And with that, I'll reserve my time and answer any questions for.
Okay. You have 8 minutes, 25 seconds for rebuttal. And does the board have any questions for Craig Bennett? Kevin Cross.
Thank you, Craig. Kind of curious, we had a substantial amount of public testimony coming to us last minute, and I fortunately got here early enough to read through most of it. I would say 90% of it has to deal with traffic issues, safety issues. Can you go into further detail about your conversations with fire safety, public safety as far as fire trucks, fire access? It looks like there's a lot of underappearance that there's a large section of the road that's not going to get developed, is going to end up trapping traffic. Can you give me a little further detail about how those conversations went and what your conversations were with the departments in order to, resolve that issue?
Sure. For the fire issue, fire prevention had no issues with this layout. There's only going to be, total of 10 lots, and fire department had no issues. They'll just come down Eleonora and to the cul-de-sac. Traffic with this plan has no issues. We had Kenny Engineering do a traffic impact analysis trip generation estimate. I believe that's page 42.
Yeah, it's actually, it's also in your revised application it's in the back.
Correct.
I think they said 100 trips a day is what they calculated during peak hours between 4 and 6.
And peak AM hour, looking at 19 total trips for the AM. So pretty minor for that.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have any other questions from the board at this time? Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, we do. Mark Seward.
Excuse me, through the chair. Mr. Bennett, a couple questions. I read a lot of concern on that 20-foot right-of-way on the east being vacated of track, the northeast area. And I'm trying to understand why is that being vacated and moved to the west? Because I see just the continuity on the existing Bernard Sub plat that's dedicated from Highland Road all the way down. Is there a specific reason for that? Because I know to the east there's an additional 20 feet trail easement in Valley Edge.
Correct. Sir, if you look at on the west, it does go all the way to the park. There's a section line easement there and the dedicated alleyway. On the east, it does not go to the park. It stops at the airstrip. So if we were to vacate along the north, it's just a dead-end easement, which isn't allowed under new code. And there's no way, you'd have to trespass over the airstrip to get to the park. Right to the right, right to the east, subdivision there was done in 2007, and they dedicated a 20-foot trail easement from Bernard all the way to the park over the existing trail. So there's a trail on both sides, there's access, I guess, on the east side and the west side, with the west being right away and on the east side being a 20-foot trail access.
I'm not sure I understand. There on lot 6, that 20-foot right-of-way that you're requesting to vacate, on the west side of that section line, is there any kind of access to the park?
Yes, sir. So plat 2007-164, lot 1A, just to the east there's a 20-foot access.
Okay.
Trail access that goes all along both our subdivision and the runway lot.
Correct. I understand that they're across just east of the property line of lot 6 is that it's currently a drainage ditch full of rocks and it's really not accessible. To the 50-foot access to the west, that's strictly going to be to the runway?
So that's the runway access for emergency vehicles, access to the runway, and that's going to be dedicated by the plat, that 50-foot, with the drainage easement attached, yes.
Okay, thank you on that one. My second question is a little more in layman terms on the traffic impact analysis. Is that AM peak hours of 19 and PM of 14, is that, am I understand that is the MOA is 100 peak hour traffic vehicles? That's their cutoff or their concern?
Yes, so this is way below any concern. So if you do a TIA at, I believe it's 100, is that right? Yeah, 100. So
Okay.
19s.
Okay, I just wanted to understand that. I'm not familiar with that formula, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Becky Lipson.
Thank you. Through the chair, I am going to need some explaining for what's going to happen to Bernard Drive in terms of, I see that the contemplated, I think it's Birch Circle, is not going to be, the proposal is that it not be improved. Is Bernard Drive to the west as shown on staff, page 22 of the staff packet? So the portion that's shaded, and I will let you flip to that. So the portion that's shaded is not going to be improved. Is it going to terminate, or is it just going to remain gravel? And if so, who is in charge of maintaining it?
So right now, the city does not maintain Bernard Drive. And so the plan this proposed subdivision. We're going to leave it right away, so it'll stay right away for future use. And we will construct from Elnora to about Lot 9 there on the south side. So about almost 800 feet of road, and then the rest will just remain. And there's many reasons for this, if you're wanting those, if that's what you're asking for.
I would like those reasons. Yeah.
In no particular order, one of the main reasons is to the east, Bernard Drive goes across mental health trust lands. There's no right-of-way, there's no easement, there's no legal access there. We can't access it, we can't upgrade it. If you look at, I think, page 51, you can kind of see, let's see. So the intersection there from Bernard to Highland is just off the page there, kind of the H of Highland. And so that's mental health trust land there, and there's no right-of-way, no easement, and no way for us to access it. One reason. The other is the intersection of Bernard and Highland is extremely sharp, way past municipal standards, but it's also really steep. It's like almost 12% slope, and you need, is it 2% at an intersection? Yeah, about 2% is what municipal standards are. There's the nexus of cost benefit. The whole west side of the property has really bad drainage, a lot of water flow, poor soil drainage, and just building a road across it isn't conducive. And let me see. And like Sean said earlier, the steep terrain, shallow subsurface flows, and it's not currently maintained by the city anyway. And with the lot layout, is everything, all the lots have the legal and physical with the proposed cul-de-sac design.
And so where would that proposed cul-de-sac be?
So if you look on the proposed plat, between lots 3 and 9, there's a temporary turnaround, just kind of touching the proposed lot 2 and lot
Okay.
10.
Got it. Last question.
Okay.
I believe you mentioned previously that this proposed plat had gone through several iterations. On those prior iterations, was it contemplated that residences could be put on Lot 1 and Lot 2?
At the proposed lots or the existing lots 1 and 2, sorry?
The proposed lots.
So proposed lot 1, yes, and then lot 2, yes. So the cul-de-sac, proposed cul-de-sac would touch lot 2. The proposed lot 1 would have a house on it, and it would have legal access along the existing right-of-way, and then the physical would be through a common access easement that goes across lot 2 to lot 1. That would be part of the home permit process, and not part of the platting process.
That's all my questions for now. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any further questions from the board at this time? Mark Seward.
Through the chair, Mr. Bennett, I understand there's a current house being built in the subdivision. Is that correct?
On proposed lot 2.
It's on the proposed lot 2, okay. Then the other one was my concern of that 20-foot right-of-way on the east edge of Lot 6. We're concerned about the drainage ditch that's actually in Valley Edge sub on that 20-foot, because I know that's pretty much impassable as a walkway, and I saw some concern in the staff packet from the public on that. So I just have a concern on that vacation of that 20-foot there, even though there's a 20-foot existing, but it's really a pretty deep trench with large boulders. It's not going to be used as a true access.
Sir, if we left that 20-foot, there's still no way of using it to get to the park, because you'd still have to trespass across the runway property, which doesn't have an easement or a dedication there. So it'd be a dead-end alley, which isn't allowed in the new Tile 21.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any further questions from the board at this time? Thank you, sir. At this time, are there any members of the public wishing to speak? Please come forward.
Members of the board, by way of introduction, I'm Leroy Alderman, partner in Wildwood Development. We're the developers of Valley Edge subdivision, which is right adjacent to Pellinor proposed subdivision. I'm here to voice my opposition to some of the aspects of this proposed plat for Pellinor. I support their ability to subdivide into buildable lots. Everybody knows we're short on lots. But I do oppose the vacation of the 20-foot easement on the east side. As Mr. Seward mentioned, the easement on Lot 1A is occupied by a drainage ditch. I think, without really looking at it, you could walk down the easement that's being proposed to vacate and cross over to the easement that is on 1A in order to access that green belt. But the larger issue is the kind of de facto vacation of Bernard Drive right away. To not develop that whole length to MOA standards is not acceptable to the neighborhood. By having cul-de-sacs on both ends of it, you would end up with about a 2,000 linear foot area that's not developed, would not be maintained by anybody, and would, in effect, end up being vacated. A good portion of Elnora Lane is a 13% grade. That makes it very difficult to drive on in the winter. Occasionally, you'll see road crews backing down as they sand it so they don't lose control. And the school kids from our neighborhood and the people from the Arc Center, which is just above our Elnora Lane, use that for access for recreation and access to the bus stop that stops up at the top of Elnora Lane and Stewart Mountain Drive. So it would also be short-sighted because there's a lot of vacant land on the west end of Bernard Drive as it's developed now. When we did the Valley Edge subdivision, we constructed a temporary cul-de-sac at the east end of Bernard Drive. There are 3 separate parcels of 20 acres each owned by 3 different people that can be developed through there. So you can see the potential for a lot more traffic coming out of that road. They contend that those parcels would be accessible by going through Stonehill Drive. But if you look at the topography, you couldn't reach Stonehill Drive until the last 20-acre parcel is developed where it kind of blends into Stonehill Drive. The rest of it is way too steep. You wouldn't be able to construct a suitable road. Furthermore, there's a lot more land down through there. Stonehill Drive could actually be extended all the way to Riverview Estates and offer an alternative to a very windy road of Highland Road and connect those people to that.
Thank you, sir.
I guess I'm
And
out of
that's your time. Can I get your last name?
Alderman, Alderman.
Thank you. And do we have any questions for Leroy Alderman? Kevin Cross.
I know you got cut off, but if you could make it real brief, would you go ahead and finish your last statement for me?
Well, I just feel that it's would be a very short-sighted decision to allow these people not to develop that road. As I mentioned before, it would fall into disrepair and not be a practical alternative to Elnora Lane. Even though there's not a lot of traffic on it now, we always have to plan for the future. There's a lot of developable land in the area, and if you don't have that now, who's going to end up extending that road? Who's going to end up improving that section?
Understood.
The road board.
My next question is, as far as the vacating, because there's lots of concern with vacating the 20-foot easement, and perhaps staff can assist me with this. The 20-foot easement right now accesses private property? Like it's a dead-end easement that just accesses somebody's private property?
On Lot 1A of Valley Edge subdivision, which is adjacent to it, there's a 20-foot easement that goes all the way to the greenbelt. But we were required to construct a drainage ditch, which is about 15 feet wide, and
Okay.
it's large boulders and all that kind of, and water runs in it occasionally. So that's not really a practical alternative for a recreational easement. Even though that 20-foot easement on the Pellinor proposed subdivision ends at the runway, I believe that at that point you could cross over to the end of the easement that's on Lot 1A and access the greenbelt that way.
Okay, I appreciate that, and I'd like for more clarification because it seems to me like I need help visualizing this. That it looks like there's a public easement, the one they're looking to cross is public property, in which case I can understand both the petitioner's concern, but then the public's concern, have they been crossing private property, which is a whole new box of worms.
Because
but-
1A has the easement that goes all the way down to the greenbelt.
Okay. All right.
Whereas the Pellinor, I agree with Mr.
Mr.
Bennett
Alderman?
that it does.
Mr.
stop-
Alderman?
It stops and takes
Can
the
we
right
get you to
angle
move
turn.
that microphone? We're not getting a good record
I'm sorry.
for you.
That's all right. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
The portion that they want to vacate does terminate, it doesn't actually terminate. It takes a right angle turn where it runs parallel to the runway. So at that point, if that side of the easement is not vacated, you could cross over to the easement that is dedicated along Lot 1A and proceed into the greenbelt.
All right, thank you. I appreciate your patience. There's a lot of moving parts. Want to make sure I grasp my head.
Yeah,
Thank
it
you.
is, and it's kind of a unique piece of property. I understand the difficulty that they're having.
Thank you, Mr. Aldrin.
Sure. Is that it?
Are there any other questions? I don't see any. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Is there any other members of the public wishing to speak tonight?
Thank you allowing me to speak. My name is Deborah Hull-Jelly. I live on Island Road, directly across from the property that's being developed, and I would like to vocalize my objection for not developing the rest of Bernard Drive. I'd like to bring to attention a municipal code that I think you should consider when making a decision on this, this plat. Under Title 21, 21.07.060, under 3, street connectivity. A, within each residential development, which is what this is, the access and circulation system should accommodate the safe, efficient, and convenient movement of vehicles, bicycles, and pedestrians through the development, provide ample opportunity for linking adjacent neighborhoods, properties, and land use. I'd also like to have you consider C, under the same section, external street connectivity. The arrangement of streets in a development shall provide for the alignment and continuation of existing streets from the boundaries of the development. The arrangements of the streets shall provide connections to adjacent lands that are undeveloped and intended for future development as required under Section 3E below, or that are developed and included in opportunities for such connections. So there is always the potential that there will be more development through this area. Under E, connections to vacant land, where new development is adjacent to land likely to be developed or redeveloped in the future. All streets, sidewalks, pathways, trails, walkways, and access ways in the development's proposed street system shall continue through to the boundary lines of the site of the new development as determined by the director and the traffic engineer, and to provide the orderly subdivision of such adjacent land or the transportation or access needs of the community. So I'd like you to take those in consideration. I know there has been some discussion that the soils in the area have been investigated. However, there is no documentation or a borehole map that shows where they've tested these soils. Having lived there for more than 25 years, I would really like you to take into consideration of these sections in the municipal code. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I get you to spell your last name so we get it right in the record?
You could ask me that. Oh, would you like? Hull-Jilly. First name is Deborah, the long way.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Deborah Hull-Jilly? Thank you. Do we have any other members of the public wishing to speak?
Hi, my name is Phil Nichterline. I've lived in this community for 37 years. I retired from a 25-year career designing roads and airports. I've walked, driven, flown, and crashed on this property over the course of all those years. The petitioner requests a subdivision variance based on a special condition statement to the effect that the easterly half of this subdivision is suitable for development, whereas the westerly half is unsuitable. This is a whole new rationale created to avoid building the road. This new rationale was curiously absent from the first proposal. The first proposal simply stated that Bernard Drive was surplus to the current and future needs of the public. When that wouldn't fly, they canceled the board meeting and crafted a second proposal to create an appearance that the westerly portion of this property cannot be developed. The engineer's soil report shows 2 test holes on the westerly half of the subdivision, and both were deemed suitable for development in the petitioner's first proposal. Let's take westerly lot 1, for example. Why not subdivide this 4-acre tract into 4 separate 1-acre lots? The vertical alignment of Bernard Drive can be lowered to reduce driveway grades and facilitate access from Bernard. Drainage could be managed by dedicating a drainage easement. Most of Lot 1 is situated on undisturbed original ground with gentle slopes. The soil appears to be mostly non-organic, non-frost susceptible material. In contrast, easterly lots 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 will all present engineering challenges. Lots 3, 4, and 5 lie squarely on top of an old overburden waste site. Our neighborhood witnessed the deep organic fill deposited there by a parade of belly dumps running for weeks on end year after year. Lot 6 is almost all wetlands with deep organics, as evidenced by the excavation and burial of multiple 4-inch PVC drainage pipes over the years. Lots 6 and 7 have drainage issues and subsurface flows. I have to seriously question why these easterly lots are deemed suitable for construction, whereas westerly lots are deemed unsuitable for construction. The safety issues resulting from an incomplete road are adequately addressed under community council resolutions in the written comments and testimony presented to you by this community. An incomplete road is unacceptable. Don't pass the burden of building this road onto the taxpayer. In conclusion, the petitioner should be held to Muni standard of building the road. The special condition statement in support of the requested subdivision variance is incorrect and unsubstantiated.
Thank you, sir.
I would be happy to answer any questions. If regarding the airplane crash, I'll have to refer you to the NTSB.
Thank you. Can I get you to spell your last name?
Nichterlein, Nuechterlein.
Thank you. And does the board have any questions for Phil Nichterlein? Mr. Cross.
Phil, I'm over here, the guy over here in the end, the bald guy. Let's see what we've got here. I appreciate it. I actually read your detailed summary as well in staff packet, and I greatly appreciate it. You've been in the neighborhood 35 years. Seems like you've got some pretty extensive knowledge having been there. What is your, the biggest issue is that we're basically leaving that road as essentially as a dead end, okay? And I hear a lot of the traffic concerns. What is your basic suggestion and what is your idea? Is it to extend it to where that cul-de-sac would be and at least complete the cul-de-sac, or is it to connect it all the way through? What would be something reasonable based on your long experience in the neighborhood, just out of curiosity?
Well, I think that the road should be built all the way through the length of the subdivision. Now, I did hear the petitioner's representative, there just say that the far western end would, there's an issue with the mental health trust lands.
Yeah.
But that situation, if I'm not mistaken, also applies to Highland Drive, the road we're presently using today. There is no defined right-of-way. It crosses mental health trust lands. So you have a traditional access situation there that would also apply to Bernard Drive. Since Bernard Drive has been present all these years, along with Highland, I think they both are in the same ballpark. So I think that we don't want any cul-de-sacs because we want to be able to have traffic through.
The petitioner's statement is that the rest of Bernard Drive, where it connects on Highland heading, which would be west, the grade is extensive and doesn't meet current grade requirements. And so therefore, constructing a road that doesn't meet the requirements then opens another box of worms.
Well, that grade can be easily rectified by, the situation you have is if you're descending Highland Drive, the grade is dropping.
Yeah.
And if you're traveling Bernard Drive, the grade is rising. But the two can converge if that alignment is slightly shifted and that right-of-way is not defined. If that alignment is slightly shifted, that whole situation they're describing can be easily mitigated when that road, by a slight shift in the alignment of that road, slightly to the north. So if you understand what I'm saying, when you're dropping on Highland, you're climbing on Bernard.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
So I think that can easily be rectified, and it's also a direct approach, a straight-on approach, so you can goose it, so to speak, to make the grade. And if there's a landing there to land on, then the intersection will be far safer than a long, curved 13% grade that we presently have on Elnora in a very awkward intersection that can't be rectified. So that, to me, that's not a sound argument because that can easily be rectified, all those conditions they're describing.
Yeah, easily. I mean, I think within the petitioners, he's got to act within existing right-of-ways. Otherwise, they've got to completely replat and change.
Well, the right-of-way is not defined in that area, so it can be adjusted.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay.
Which route were the belly dumps taking when they were bringing all the materials in?
They were coming down Bernard Drive and up through Elnora because they're using the Bernard Drive right away because so that they could drive through and not have to turn around.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Becky Lipsum. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Through the chair, could you describe current use of Bernard Drive seasonally? I would like to get a sense of how frequently folks are using it.
We all use it periodically. I think it comes into play during the wintertime. There's some people that can't make the grade on Elnora, so they use Bernard Drive as an alternate in the wintertime. But that's all subject to what snow conditions. Some years we don't have a lot of snow. Some years we do. It's not maintained, but it's always been used at various seasons of the years. But sometimes in the wintertime, when Elnora is not manageable, people will go out that way.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the board? Mark Seward.
I don't know if you can answer or not, through the chair. The access now to that current construction, are they coming down Bernard Drive, or are they coming in from Eleanor?
For the current construction that's taking place, they're using both.
Okay.
Both Elnora and Bernard. They're coming in, they're using the whole loop.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Do we have any other members of the public wishing to speak?
My name's Steve Hamilton. I live on Bernard Drive at the far improved end of Bernard Drive on the east. There's several issues that have been brought up. I think most of them have been addressed. One that I would just like to reiterate is that the proposed platting didn't originally have any statement about the inability to build on the westerly half. The original objections to improving Bernard Drive were solely based on the expense of improving Bernard Drive, which I'm sympathetic to. I understand that the owners are essentially the developers in this case. I wouldn't want to have to pay for it either. But on the other hand, the developers of my portion of Bernard Drive had to pay to improve the road, to raise the road, to do whatever they had to do to improve the road within Muni standards, and we feel like the same thing should be done with a holistic approach to the entire community, not the expense that burden that it causes for the Pellinor subdivision owners. I do drive that road, that unimproved portion of that road, and to be honest, I'm dumbfounded that the westerly edge, I'm not an engineer, and I can't speak to what would be required to build a road, but on the easterly edge, where we are proposing that it's completely possible to build a road, it's a swamp, and I wouldn't drive it in a few weeks when it starts to melt. There's no way I would drive that way. The rest of the road is absolutely passable. The western edge is the most passable part of the road. I do understand that there is some, at the end, steep grade that I won't speak to whether it could be mitigated or not. I wouldn't know why not. But it's better than Elnora, where now we're going to put additional traffic not only from the Pellinor subdivision, but from future development, where my children walk down the side of that road where there are no sidewalks. So I strongly oppose what we consider to be essentially vacating the easement. I don't know what the plan is to transition from the cul-de-sac to the portion of the road that the developers don't want to build. I don't even know if that's going to be passable, but it is passable now, save the next 30 days on the easterly edge where we maintain that we can improve the road. So I think I'd just like to voice that the entire community has been unanimous at every meeting we've had. There's been around 30 people at every community meeting voicing their opposition to the vacating of Bernard, and that has changed and has morphed, and certainly the owners and the developers have that right.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Steve Hamilton?
Correct.
Thank you. Do we have any other members of the public wishing to speak? Please come forward, sir.
Good evening. My name is Phil Watson. I live on Elnora Drive on the north side of Elnora Drive. So that's the south side of this property that we're talking about tonight. I would like to draw your attention to the written comments that Phil and Linda Nectarline already gave to the process tonight. And they do just a great job of explaining a lot of things. So rather than go through all that, I'd just kind of like to put a face to that, if I may. One of the concerns that they bring out is the hazardous driveways on Elnora and how steep they are, and I'm one of those. Our driveway is very steep, and even with diligence, on my part, trying to keep it clear, it snows at night and it rains during the day and freezes and all of that kind of stuff. And our driveways get very, very slippery, and there's no way that we can get onto Elnora from our driveway other than at speed. It's the only way we can do it. And so we're always looking left and right, but we can't really see left and right till we get right up to the top, and it's really hazardous. And the reason I bring that up is because this is like a double-edged sword. If we lose Bernard as our alternate access, not only will we have to use Elnora during really treacherous times, but actually the usage of Elnora will go up by an estimated 75% of traffic. So it's really a gotcha from both sides. Also, the pedestrian hazards. The young people from the Arch facility walk by our house routinely. And again, if you had more traffic, and think ultimately way down the road, if those other projects are developed, there would be a lot more traffic. But even with just this project, approximately 75% more usage would be that much more hazardous for those children. And also getting to Mr. Cross's point with regard to the 12% grade at the western edge of Bernard, our grade is 13% on Elnora. So even at its worst case, that's better than putting the traffic through on Elnora with such a steep grade. And I also agree with Steve and those that have spoke before. Our community has been unanimous in our opposition to the vacation. We would like to keep Bernard. Perhaps others will tell stories, but there have been years when if it weren't for Bernard, we just wouldn't get out. You can't four-wheel up it if it's all icy, and we're not on a bus route. We don't get quick snow removal. And sometimes it's days, long days, before the snow removal comes, and by that point it's usually icy.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any questions for Phil Watson? Kevin Cross.
Phil, you'd made a statement that if you lost access to Bernard Drive, is it your understanding that you will no longer be able to drive on that section of Bernard Drive?
Well, yes, as I understand it, if it's not maintained and it's not kept up to the standards that the municipality has set forth, then it will become, as I understand it, unusable eventually.
Who currently maintains it? It's used currently, is correct?
I don't know that anybody actually maintains it right now.
All right.
Officially.
From what I understand, it's just kind of maybe the locals because the state's not maintaining it because it doesn't meet their grade requirements.
Yeah, I think maybe years ago Bernie Stewart actually used to keep it maintained and graded and stuff, but I'm not sure now.
But if it's not finished or developed, but it's continued in its continuing usage, I mean, in its current condition, and you still access it, I mean, trying to look to where how that's been harmed as far as access. I mean, I don't see where they're saying you can't drive on this section of road anymore that you've been driving on.
That's true. I guess I think it's just logical to assume, though, that erosion will occur over the years. If somebody's got to maintain it.
Excellent. I appreciate that. Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you. Becky Lipson.
Thank you. Through the chair, Kevin's comment raised a question of my own, which maybe staff can address. So if there is going to be the temporary turnaround that's marked on Lot 3 and Lot 9, does staff know whether that would essentially block access to the eastern portion of Bernard Drive?
Through the chair, Ms. Lipson, The temporary turnaround that would be constructed does not block access to the remaining portions of Bernard Drive. It just means that section west of the temporary turnaround indicated on the plat would not be improved beyond the standard that it exists today. However, the road would not be blocked. The public would be allowed access, and effectively the situation that would exist following this plat would be no different than how it exists today.
Thank you.
Maybe we should bring up at this point, because you may not be aware of this, the standard that it is today, it's a one lane, 2 tires with the brush hitting the side of your vehicle road. That's the standard that it's at today.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions for Phil Watson? Thank you, sir. Are there any other members of the public wishing to speak this evening?
I'm Andrew Brewer. I'm acting secretary for the South Fork Community Council. I wouldn't be speaking if Carl was here, but he's our president.
Can I get you, you're speaking on behalf of the board or of the council?
Well, I am from the community council, so I'm trying to reinforce an idea that came up at the last meeting from Jose Vicente. He is the developer for.
It comes down to whether I get you 5 minutes or 3. So if you're speaking on behalf, officially on behalf of the council.
Unless Carl's going to speak, then I would like to speak on behalf of what the council brought up at the last meeting. Okay. Jose Vicente made this point. If the developer is not required to build the road to standard, then the public will eventually have to take that on. He's also the president of SBURSA, which is the road board for our area. So he knows wherever he speaks. He says if the developer does not bring it up to standard, the public will eventually have to. So that was his main point. I'm not personally opposed to the developer developing the property, but we have to realize that that road is going to have to be developed at some point. So I don't know the cost. That's what bothers me about this. Nobody is bringing up what is really at issue is how much is it going to cost to build this unbuildable piece of road. So that bothers me because I don't know the facts behind that. But anyway, our community council was adamant in pointing that out, that the road will have to be brought up to standard at some point. That's my point.
Did I get your last name right? Is it
Brewer, Andrew Brewer, Brewer.
I did spell it wrong, but I got it right. Okay.
Thank you.
We have a question for you from Mr. Cross.
Oh, go ahead.
Thank you, Andrew. I appreciate your impassioned plea. You state that obviously it's a concern, and I'm still not clear if you're speaking on behalf of the community council or yourself. Had that been established?
I think he's speaking on behalf of himself.
Okay.
Because he's got the community council president here.
Yeah, I'm not the president.
Oh, gotcha. I'll still ask it. Improvement of this road and this development benefits whom? Who would, like, if we're going to develop and we're going to improve this road, which we're asking the developer, who benefits from the improvements?
Who benefits from the improvement? Well, directly, the people that will live along the road will, obviously.
So I guess my question, if it benefits the public, can you see where there might be where a petitioner's argument may be that should the public also bear some of the responsibility of that? I guess I'm not arguing one way or the other, but when you say the developer doesn't do it, somebody else is going to have to.
That's right, eventually.
The question is, is the community council, well, and I'll ask that for the community council, if they've ever bid out or looked at possibly improving that road for the benefit of the neighborhood. And I appreciate it. Thank you, Andrew.
It would be the road board. The road board of our area has a separate service area, and they are involved in improving the roads everywhere. Yeah. So they're getting down now to where most of the whole area is improved past the gravel stage. I think they got 8 miles left of unimproved surface out there. So they take this on an annual basis. So eventually they'll get there. Eventually they will.
Thank you.
Yeah.
May we have our next speaker? Thank you, ma'am.
My name is Linda Nichterline, and I have lived along Elnora Lane and walked along Elnora Lane for 37 years. I also oppose incomplete construction of Bernard Drive as proposed by the petitioner because it creates safety issues, limited fire truck access, and egress concerns, which are all detailed in the comments to the board, so I'm not going to get into all the details. Elnora Lane is a steep, non-standard roadway constructed by a homesteader many years ago as a small subdivision road with an awkward intersection, hazardous driveways, and school children who walk the traveled way. Quite frankly, I think the traffic study that the petitioner is talking about is not applicable. 19 cars is a lot of cars along Elnora Lane, especially when you're walking along it. I mean, it would be very dangerous for the school kids to be walking with, it is now, and it's even more dangerous with this increased traffic load. The near-term impact is a substantial traffic increase from Pellinora subdivision development. It appears that 9 homes will be added to the existing 12 homes that currently use Elnora Lane. That's really significant. That's a 75% increase. The grades that they're talking about on the western end of Bernard Drive are short. It's a 12% grade possibly, but it's a very minimal distance. Elnora Lane has a 13% grade, and it's a much longer grade. The long-term traffic impacts will drastically increase the traffic burden onto Elnora Lane, resulting from future development to the east. Bernard Drive will likely be extended beyond its eastern terminus at the temporary cul-de-sac to serve prime development land amounting to 60 acres immediately adjacent, 100 acres of Oklutna land beyond that, and potentially hundreds of acres of developable land beyond that. Given constraints of topography, developers will likely propose to extend Bernard eastward to provide gentle grades, less costly construction, and more direct access to immediate lands as compared to the alternatives. Therefore, incomplete construction of Bernard Drive is short-sighted for the long-term community growth, will exacerbate current safety concerns on Elnora in the near term that will become progressively worse over the longer term. If the road is not built within the existing right-of-way, who will maintain public access along the undeveloped portion? The Rural Road Service area will not take on that responsibility, which was pointed out in the staff notes. I would also like to point out that under the current proposal, the petitioners issued a driveway permit, or I think they called it a common lot easement, in the Pellinor subdivision to cross Lot 2 to gain access to Lot 1, so they can build a house on Lot 1. And it will have to cross another right-of-way besides Bernard Drive in the process. This appears to be an awkward workaround to avoid building more of Bernard Drive.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Linda Nichterline?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And our next speaker?
Good evening. My name is Carl Von Lerdy, and I serve as the chair of the South Fork Community Council, and I do request the 5 minutes.
Okay, we'll get there in a minute. We're ready.
Board members, good evening, and thank you for your service to this board and making our community a better place. At our regularly scheduled meeting, we voted unanimously 18-0 on a resolution expressing our concern related to this case. This resolution, 18-001, is contained in your read-ahead packets. I'd like to use my limited time to specifically address the petitioner's request for variance on the construction of Bernard Drive internal to the subdivision. Other members of the community have already testified on the request for a right-of-way vacation. First and foremost, we consider one of our most important duties as a community council to identify items which could impose a safety problem or an unfair burden on our community. The request for variance on construction of the length of Bernard Drive, internal to subdivision, up to Highland Road, will decrease the safety and impose an unfair burden on both Subursa and the taxpayers of Chugiak Eagle River, who will end up having to fix this shortfall in the future. Bottom line, the developer should comply with Title 21. Petitioner cited access and steepness as challenges. Access across mental health trust land should be easy to obtain. As it was mentioned previously, it falls in the same category as Highland Drive, but they have not even tried this. Steepness could easily be addressed, like many other steepness where it meets Highland Drive, could easily be addressed, as you will see many other similar intersections along Highland Drive that are much steeper. And as previously mentioned, there are mitigation steps within the adjusting inside the right-of-way previously discussed. As you can tell from the people here, as well as the comments you have already received, as well as our resolution, the majority of the stakeholders of South Fork Community Council and, by extension, Chugiak Eagle River completely oppose the variance on road construction. Please do not waste taxpayer money by granting this variance and potentially fighting future lawsuits similar to what happened with the Yellowstone Drive debacle. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Don Porter.
Okay. Carl, since you are, tell me again, you are the head of the community council?
I'm the chair of the community council.
Okay. So can you explain to me the wisdom of building all the way to the western edge, Bernard, and then leaving it still an unimproved roadway from there to Highland until such time as another developer, mental health trust, somebody else comes along and tries to figure out how to connect actually to Highland from Bernard, because that's what's going to happen. Is that, tell me if I'm wrong. That's what I want to know.
Perhaps I misstated it. Phil, you want to help me out with this? He's got the better expertise as being right there.
Okay, with respect to the mental health trust lands to the west of Bernard Drive, that's public land, and that road has been there for many years. As far as improving it, who would bear that cost? I assume that would be a public cost to bear the burden of finishing that section of the road. Whether that would happen right away or whether it would happen later, I don't know the answer to that question. But if the petitioner is held accountable to bear the cost to the western boundary of the subdivision, then I assume the public would have to bear the rest of that cost. And at which time that would happen, I don't know. Unless there's some mechanism where the next developer that comes along, say they're developing off the eastern end terminus of Bernard Drive, maybe that part of that cost can be borne by that developer and it would happen at that time. I don't know the answer to that question. That would be up for the city to decide. But even if the construction terminates and the public doesn't, if there's no project to finish that road at this time, the road that's there can be used in the interim. It's just not up to standard. But then again, there's a lot of roads here that aren't up to standard. I mean, the road we live on isn't up to standard. Highland Road's not up to standard. So what's to say that that road needs to be brought to standard right away at the time of this development? Seems to me it could still be used, as which time somebody decides to bring it up to standard. Or maybe it's brought up to partial standard in the interim. I don't know the answer to all those questions, but I think it still can be used, and I think it still minimizes the cost to the public if the majority of the built road is borne by the petitioner. That's my take on it.
Yep. The bottom line is these 9 new homes should have a safe access directly to Highland and not up Eleanor. That's the bottom line. Okay?
Okay.
Because the developer owes it to the people that are going to be buying those houses, not to push them up Eleanor. That's what I mean. So I apologize if I don't understand all the intricacies. I don't actually live there.
So the near term, whether that section of Bernard from the eastern edge over to Lot 3, Lot 9, whether it gets built or not, it's not going to change the safety aspects of it until somebody takes it upon the public, or 20 years down the line, that portion of Bernard finally gets connected to Highland. So that's the part that I'm struggling to understand. We talk about the safety of it, but without that connection, that may or may not happen. It's going to be no different, right? They're going to build all these lots. They're going to all access Eleanor for the most part because it's a developed, maintained right-of-way. And the only question is whether Lot 1, 2, and 10 have a better roadway to wind down over to Eleanor. Anyway, that's the thing I'm struggling with at
Okay.
this point.
I can understand where you're struggling with it, whether it needs to be a public-private partnership or something. I don't really have the answer to that. I just am expressing the safety concerns, and down the line, we know it's going to end up on Subursa and by extension ourselves. We continue to put. You asked a question earlier, Mr. Cross, about how do we rack and stack these improvements and safety issues that are up and down Highland Road. This is only one of them. And every year we vote on the capital improvement proposal list, and we rack and stack them and push them up in the community council survey. And so, bottom line, it comes down to money. Until we get the money, this and many other improvements, safety improvements up and down Highland Road just are not going to be addressed.
Yeah.
Carl, can I get your last name?
Last name is Von Luhrte. V as in Victor, O-N, space L-U-H-R-T-E.
Mr. Cross, did you have a question for Mr.
Just more of a statement, and one thing, and I really appreciate it. Thanks a lot, Carl. One of the things I've heard mentioned several times is it's done over there. That's a really bad grade. That's justification for why they can't. One thing I want to make sure you guys are clear is, listen, I would love it if when I rehabbed and flipped a house, I could build it back to the standards it was built at. But since the muni won't permit that, I can't go back and install asbestos or anything. If something's not to code, I can't. So one of the arguments is if it was done over there and this is a grade Eleanor's 13, I think part of what we're looking at here is how do we make this safe within reason and affordable? We've got to access these lots, and yet the rest of this, if it's just going to go to a dead end, does that make sense? I mean, just because it was done over there doesn't say that's justification to then do another steep road over here, I guess.
Certainly, I see where you're coming from, and that, by the way, is not what I'm saying.
No,
I'm saying move the intersection so you reduce the grade. Clearly, if you put it up high where it is now, that's what's going to create the problem.
I think the minimum grade now is what, 10%?
Yeah.
Minimum grade's 10, so even the connection going up. So it's a.
Yeah, you'd have to push it further down.
Sounds like quite the project. I appreciate it. Thank
you.
you.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any other members of the public wishing to speak? You've already
comment?
No, you've already had
Okay.
your opportunity. Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
All right. My name is Doreen Hamilton. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. The reason we're here today is because they're asking for a variance from what was stated when they actually purchased the land. They bought it under certain conditions. And so I'm a little bit frustrated with the insinuation, or is the Platting Board willing to go forward and say the developer no longer bears the cost for what they bought, what they had understood when they purchased it, and now they're asking for a variance to do not what was expected of them? I understand that as they talk about going into a cul-de-sac, and while there may be access at the other end of the cul-de-sac, a cul-de-sac to me means a place where my kids can ride the bike without access on the other side. I live at the end of Bernard Road. My kids are the ones walking down. My kids are the ones that I have to rush home to pick up because I'm afraid that when they walk down, that they will be encountered by a car, especially on these steep roads. My son called me the other day crying because he fell 5 times because I didn't make it home in time. Now, that is the ice on Elnora Road, and I don't expect that to change. But what I do expect is that there's not the additional traffic. When you look at a 75% increase in the amount of traffic, while 19 hours may be the public standard, it is not the Highland standard. And so I am also the person who lives at the end. And Ms. Libson, you asked, how much traffic is there? How many people use that other road? I do. There's been 3 times during the summer that I've driven out and I haven't been able to get out because there's been trees being cut down. I have to use that other road. And I do understand I'm going over unmaintained road, but a cul-de-sac that they're proposing to build limits my access. They may say that I may go through. That is not going to, I can't envision the way it is drawn on the plan that I'll be able to drive through someone's cul-de-sac. That's not by definition what it is, at least in my mind, and I could be wrong. But I do ask the Platting Board, are you willing to say that the developer no longer has to bear the cost of what they purchased, that they should be able to ask for a variance, and you're going to say that's okay, and the taxpayers will then pay for the rest of the improvement? I think that's a dangerous water that we're treading on, much more dangerous than a 13-degree slope.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Doreen Hamilton? Thank you, Ms. Hamilton.
Thank you.
Do we have any other members of the public wishing to speak tonight? Thank you. May we have the petitioner's representative for rebuttal?
All right, thank you. Chair, Board, I think I misunderstood you, Mark, when you're talking about that easement on the east side or that alleyway. The petitioner would be willing to dedicate a trail easement on over where that 20-foot alleyway is, and then over to the existing trail easement on that Lot 1A.
Repeat that again, I missed part of you.
So where that
20-foot?
So where that 20-foot alleyway was or is on the east side, the petitioner would be willing to dedicate a trail easement there, and then people can walk across that trail easement, then over to the right on that Lot 1A that has the existing 20-foot trail easement.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And that's on Lot 6?
Correct.
And that trail easement is not the ditch?
Correct.
Thank you.
All right. And I'll have Dave Grenier.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Dave Grenier, Triad Engineering, and I'd like to speak about the Bernard Road issue. We've heard a lot of testimony tonight about that. From the development standpoint, when we took a look at this parcel, we looked long and hard at creating additional lots, especially on Lot 1 and Lot 10. From the standpoint of the test holes that were dug, looking at the septic system layout and the amount of surface water we have, we did not see it as an appropriate development to create lots in that area. In fact, our conclusion was we could not get additional lots. From that standpoint, here's the conundrum with this project. There is
a public need, as we've heard tonight, to have that access. But from a development standpoint, it is not economical. If improvements are placed on this parcel tonight to build that entire project, the project would not go forward. The conundrum is you've got public need that not only goes across this project, but also to Highland. To build a road to the new Title 21 standards, which includes what's called Chapter 1 requirements, it would take a significant amount of additional right-of-way. You hear that it moves the road downhill. This is no small feat when you're working with, especially the Mental Health Trust. The road grade, Mr. Cross is correct, 10% is the maximum. However, at an intersection, the maximum grade is 4%. And the other requirement, if you place this requirement on this project, is 60-degree or more. You can only have a deflection of 60 degrees at an intersection versus 90. So it's a major improvement to meet municipal standards under Title 21. In our mind, this project is more of a subursa issue because it has it benefits the general public. So the conundrum is you have a development that has significant amount of road that is not economical to build. However, the public is looking for that type of an improvement. So to us, we're creating some tax base that will help with that process. And if in the future lots 1 and 10 could be subdivided, somehow getting septic systems to work, possibly that is a way to also offset the cost. But at this point, we don't see the project as being feasible from a road construction standpoint. With that, the owner would like a few words at this time.
Members of the board, thank you. I just wanted to comment on the fact that people are saying that land is developable. Several other developers tried to do it and couldn't. And I think there was one proposal we looked at that was 19 lots, and they couldn't make it feasible. The areas were not buildable to make it economically feasible. And before we got into this project, we talked to the Muni because it is a complicated area. And we didn't go into it thinking that, we would have to build the whole road. So this is what we thought we were getting into. And I think we're making the best of a complicated area. This area was homesteaded and didn't follow any of the codes. And I feel like this proposal benefits the community because it's building part of the road and, like Dave said, offsetting some of the future cost if that road is ever brought in. And that's all I had. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
I need your name for the record.
Oh, sorry. It's Richard White, W-I-G-H-T.
Thank you. And I have a question from you. Don Porter has a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Yes, through the chair. As I understand it, we're going to terminate the public improvement portion basically at the western edges of lots 3 and 9. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's where the road would run until.
So let me ask, why is it acceptable to give little more than driveway access, including combining access of lot 1 and 2 and lot 10? You're not bringing the public improvements to the frontage of Lot 2 nor Lot 10? Why is that acceptable?
The Lot 10 is not, it can't be developed basically, so I can't really speak to that one. But 1 and 2 are my brother and my lots, and that's an agreement we came to put the common access easement into there. So 2 is his house that's already being built, and then 1 would be mine. So just because of the cost of bringing it that extra distance, that's after many meetings with the municipality, an agreement that we came to. Yes, sir.
Yes. In addition to that, Mr. Porter, if you look at the plat, there's a stream that runs essentially across across Bernard. That's not only on Lot 10, but on Lot 10 or on Lot 1 and through Bernard. So there's a significant drainage issues in that section of the road.
Kevin Cross.
Yes, so my understanding is, okay, so we're going to have the turnaround at the ends, at the west side of lots 3 and 9, and that's where it's going to cease, and then no development further. But you and your brother shares lots 1 and 2, so that'll be basically, is that going to be like your shared access to access your homes?
Well, 2 has direct access from the cul-de-sac.
So it's direct access,
Yeah.
and then so right now the road right away will be access to your lot?
That's the legal access. The physical access is through a common access agreement.
All right, so the legal access, and then, which I imagine then you would be maintaining up until where the old cul-de-sac or the turnaround would be. Okay. Thank you.
Do we have any further questions? Mark Seward.
Through the chair, Mr. Wright, this access from Lot 2 is going to be completely outside the right-of-way, crossing the cul-de-sac bulb and going into Lot 1? Isn't that my understanding?
Access to Lot 2 is off of the cul-de-sac.
Correct.
Are you referring to Lot 1, the next one over?
Yes, you're going to have a shared access agreement to Lot 1 to the west?
Yes, correct.
Is that going to be like crossing that right-of-way into 1? Okay. Is there a building site there, or there's nothing being built this time?
Not yet on 1.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Do we have any other questions for the petitioner? Don Porter.
Yes, through the chair. On page 3 of the packet, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 down. To the west, Bernard Drive, Chugach, Birchwood, Eagle River Rural Road Service Area maintained right-of-way that is classified as a local street in the OSHP. That's the official streets and highway plan. Bernard appears to be a gravel surface with a width of approximately 20 feet west of the proposed subdivision. Is it maintained by Subursa? CBERRY?
To my understanding from our meetings with the municipality, none of this section internal to our subdivision is maintained, or the section on the mental health trust. There's actually a sign when you turn down there, it says municipal maintenance ends here. So it is not maintained.
Yeah, it would be not municipally maintained. It would be maintained by the RSA, the road service area. Maybe Dave Grenier can help us with this?
Basically, through the chair, Mr. Porter, the road is not maintained by Subursa. And there's a letter in the packet on page 109 that Mark Littlefield has basically said they do not maintain it.
Okay.
Thank you. Is there a cost estimate on what this section of road you're asking to be vacated is going to cost?
The section not being built, you mean?
Yeah, that you're asking
I
a
don't
variance
know.
for.
I don't have that information with me this evening, sir. Okay.
And it does have stream crossings. Were you going to be able to, were you pricing that out based on culverts or a bridge?
To the chair, yes, that would be culverts, not bridges. As stream setbacks are, and we would have to work with watershed management on that to establish stream setbacks, which are typically 25 foot on each side to begin with. And when you're looking at realignment, it's a significant process to realign a defined stream or an identified stream. So in this particular case, as you see it, it's within Bernard. And so there would be some significant effort to get that realigned.
Okay. Does that raise Becky Lipson?
Thank you. I just wanted clarification on one point. Did you say that you and your brother were the owners of Lot 1 and 2?
Yes.
And I should clarify, with present intent to personally develop those
Yes.
parcels? Okay.
Yes, for our houses.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any final questions from the board? Seeing none, thank you. The matter now rests with the board. The public hearing now has been closed and the matter rests with the board. May I have a motion to approve the request for vacation of the 20-foot wide section of right-of-way on North Tract F1? Mark Seward.
Through the chair, in case S12380, on approval of the vacation of the 20-foot wide right-of-way north of Tract F1, Block 2, I would like to present a positive motion for that vacation.
Thank you, and that motion has been seconded by Kevin Cross. Would you like to speak to your motion?
In case 12380, I think the petitioner is satisfied and proven that that's unneeded, unnecessary right-of-way. It's not a benefit to the public, and I intend to support this motion.
Thank you. Are there any other findings? Don Porter.
I'm intending to support this motion, and in one specific comment, an airport runway is wont to be crossed by somebody if they happen to be right next to it. Nobody's going to take the long way around, for the lack of a better statement. So to have a 20-foot easement that they will use and walk all the length of it and not cross the runway, which I would believe to create a safety issue once you present somebody with a short crossing of the runway.
Thank you. Kevin Cross.
Yes, I also seek to support this motion. Regarding the vacation request, I do want to point out that the standards have been met under AMC 21.03.230A under the authority on through pages 13 and 14. It has met the 6 different requirements in order to vacate the 20-foot wide easement.
Thank you. Is there anyone opposed to approving this motion to vacate the 20-foot wide easement? Or right-of-way, sorry, not easement, right-of-way. Seeing no opposition, the motion passes. May I have a motion to approve variance from AMC 2108 to 050A1? Kevin Cross, would you like to state your motion?
Yes, let's see. Regarding case number S12380, move to approve a variance from AMC 21.08.050A, point 1, improvements to not construct a portion of a right-of-way along Bernard Drive and Barrett Circle, subject to condition 1.
Thank you. And that motion needs a second. Becky Lipson has seconded the motion. Mr. Cross, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes. In order to seek this variance under AMC 21.08.050A1, it specifically states some criteria. And these criteria are as follows. There is a special circumstance or conditions affecting the property such that the strict application of provisions of the subdivision regulations would clearly be impractical, unreasonable, or undesirable to the general public. I think Don made a fantastic point when he said they're only improving up to a certain point, and there's still a large section of this road that's not going to be improved. So for them to dramatically improve up to there in hopes that it'll eventually get improved one day doesn't seem reasonable. Seems like all that should come out in one ball of wax. If he builds a road and it deteriorates for 15 to 20 years before they get around to developing that area, you're going to have to redo the road again because 15, 20 years of erosion over streams, who knows, not being maintained. It's not currently being maintained by the people who are supposed to maintain it through the rural road development. Just seems a little unburdensome. It seems impractical under this provision to the building owner. We are talking 9 homes. And looking at how many houses are on here, I understand it is increase in traffic. And I look at the actual impact in the road study. The road study to me seems very reasonable that was done and included in staff analysis. So you're going to have, in time, over the course of many years, because these houses aren't going up really well, you have 9 new neighbors. Based on my experience here and what we've seen, that doesn't seem unreasonable for what they're doing with a turnaround. Additionally, the granting of the specific variance will not be detrimental to the public welfare or injurious. So we do have a cul-de-sac turnaround for fire trucks, for emergency, and that's really important. We don't want anything that's going to dead end where a fire truck can't get in or they can't. Now, obviously, we have almost the exact same situation on the opposite side of Bernard. It dies in. It's got a turnaround cul-de-sac, so they're not getting anything more than what's already being provided to individuals on the other side of the street. Finally, C, such variance should not have the effect of nullifying the intent and the purpose of the subdivision regulation of the comprehensive plan for the municipality. And this standard is met since the variance does not nullify subdivision requirements or a comprehensive plan. Regarding the access to Bernard, I think it's just important that everybody acts as responsible, good neighbors and works with the community council. Since improvement of that road and future maintenance benefits the public, I would encourage the public to get together and work with the property owner to maintain that road for everybody's mutual access. That's the best way to handle it. Neighbors working together. Thank you.
Becky Lipson.
Thank you. I will not be supporting my motion. I feel that public testimony has been pretty direct, that there are not necessarily reasons for why this development of furtherance of the road would be impractical, unreasonable, or undesirable to the general public. Furthermore, I probably would have taken a split the baby approach and suggested, if possible, that with further subdivision of Lot 1 and Lot 2 and Lot 10, if that happened down the road, that the road would then be improved. I don't think that the kick the can down the road approach is going to work here, simply because if Lot 1 and Lot 2 are being developed for personal use, I don't see that those are going to be further subdivided anytime soon. I haven't heard anything besides that it is expensive to build the road, which I do not doubt, and I'm not discounting necessarily, but I would have appreciated some type of explanation as to cost. And for those reasons, I'm going to be denying the motion.
Don Porter.
So, I'm not decided in my head whether I'm supporting the motion or not. I have concerns. One of my concerns is simply that regardless of the extent of the road development, Bernard Drive will not be developed from Highland up to what we're saying the western edge of this Pellinor subdivision. So the safety concerns all rest upon adding 9 neighbors to Eleonora. It's not that many in the big picture of things, although each person is going to see extra cars that they did not see before, and so therefore they're going to see a dramatic increase, and they have concerns about safety. Well, they have concerns about safety on the roads already. That's just a fact of life. So from the municipality's point of view, they are, and we've seen this before, we've seen several discussions about, well, this other access is better and we want the developer to develop it all the way because it benefits our neighborhood. Well, that's simply not fair to the developer, because the developer is held to the standard of simply developing the areas upon which they are developing, not, well, that road extends all the way down to wherever and you need to develop the road all the way down. That just, it's not fair. That is when the public and Subursa gets involved and they build the road. I have concerns about the extent of the development not being extended farther than 3 and 9. Lot 1, when it gets sold 5, 10, 20, 50 years from now, they're going to have to deal with the person on Lot 2. So I have concerns about that. But that doesn't change the overall question of whether you build it all or build it not. Because whether you build it to halfway between Lot 2 or you stop at 3 through 9, it doesn't change the fact that you're going to not have the rest of the road developed all the way down to Highland, and it's quite possible, we don't know, that that road isn't buildable to MOA standard, period. Whereas Eleanor Lane and Stewart Mountain and Highland Road are all built. For better or for worse, they're there, and that's what the municipality has to work with. So, thank you.
Thank you. Do any other board members wish to weigh in with some findings? Mark Seward.
Through the chair, I too am on the middle of the fence on this not building that road development. But to the east, the subdivision, when that was developed and built, the developer was required to build and improve the road to the east boundary with a temporary turnaround. We see it throughout Eagle River. Eaglewood Sub has crept up the valley. Driftwood Bay Drive, they've been required to build it to the future because we don't know. I feel that will be Bernard Road will be built all the way to Highland across the trust lands down the road, but that's not my concern at this time because I don't know who's going to own that, along with several other parcels throughout Eagle River, Chugach area, but the road is built to that spot, so I'm not sure which way I'm going. I'm still waiting to hear more testimony. Thank you.
Thank you. Don Porter.
And in terms of the cost to build the road, the concern about pushing a stream through the culvert is not lost on me. It's not as simple as I just throw a culvert in. Now, right now, Bernard Road crosses the culvert. People are driving through a creek. It's dry at times, it's wet at times. But to make it an improvement that's public and to put a culvert across that is no small feat. And that hasn't really been investigated nor quantified in terms of cost impact. But it's there, and it would be an expense for just 2 lots. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I would like to make the findings that the standards required by 21.03240G require that the applicant state the facts or circumstances being alleged to show the application meets the following standards. And I find it interesting that we're sitting here lacking the financial information of what makes it impracticable, unreasonable, or undesirable to the public. We don't have the evidence. All we have is a flat statement that says it's too expensive and this project won't go forward if we don't have our way. That doesn't leave us with much room for making a decision or finding that adequate facts have been alleged. With respect to the granting of a specific variance, that it won't be detrimental to public welfare. I would find that not requiring the building of these feet, I'm not certain how long the road is there. Looks like maybe 350 feet or 115, it's not really clear. But not having that built at this time would be injurious to the public with respect to, they would be the ones then bearing the cost of building that road. I would like to have seen the applicant perhaps asking for a lesser standard of the road, but not to have it not built at all just doesn't seem appropriate in this case, especially in as much as they are already constructing their own personal residences on the property. And I think not requiring the development at this time would be nullifying the regulations that require a developer to build the roads to the standards when they're making the development. Accordingly, I would not be supporting the motion. At this time, are there any other findings? I guess we'll go ahead and call the vote. We'll now take up a motion to approve the plat for 24 months, subject to conditions 1 through 12 on pages 18 through 20. Kevin Cross, would you please state your motion for the record?
Does adjustments to Section C have to be made considering that Department Recommendation B did not pass? I mean, we've got Section C, number 2, enter into a subdivision agreement with private development for the municipal standards of 20-foot wide strip pavement, but that says yet to be determined.
That's moot.
Since it's moot, so we just make it approval of C and then remove condition number 2 until revised. How would we adjust that?
Through the chair, Mr. Cross, maybe I can answer that question. You would revise the condition to require improvements of the full section of right-of-way for Bernard fronting the subdivision.
Or I think right now what we're looking for is additional findings. For instance, the possibility of a lower standard and bids and some cost proposals for review, or I think right now it
Through the
is
chair,
a big question
Mr.
mark.
Cross, the minimum standard for the municipality of Anchorage in a rural area is a strip paved section. I wouldn't recommend that the board take up the idea of any lesser improvement. I would not recommend that.
All right, thank you.
Becky Lipson.
Thank you. Through the chair, I also had a question about, I believe there was potential modification of the language involving the portion of Lot 6 that was used to access the greenbelt on the other side of Lot 6 and the other subdivision. I am reviewing my notes right now to see how that would be done, but my understanding is that would also need to be modified before the plat is approved. Preliminary plat. Thank you.
Dedicate. It looks like dedicating the trail on Lot 6 on the east side of the property would need to be an additional. Condition 6 would apparently go. We wouldn't need the temporary turnaround, so we could put the dedication of the trail.
That's number 7, isn't it? Dedication of 50-foot easement and 20-foot drainage easement.
Well, number 7 is
I think
the
number
50-foot.
7 handles your concern, doesn't it?
No, that's the 50-foot access way to the airport between Lot 5 and 6 is number 7. So the dedication of a 20-foot trail access on the east edge of Lot 6 would be a new condition.
We got number 8, dedicated 20-foot alley as shown in preliminary plat on the northern boundary to tract F2, F3. That's down.
And that's up for Lot 2.
Okay. Add a 7A. So it'd be to dedicate a 20-foot easement, a 20-foot right-of-way easement. What would be the best way to verbalize that? Dave, can you help us come up with how we need to amend maybe or add number 7? Trail easement. So dedicate a 20-foot trail easement.
Yep.
Between lots 5 and 6?
But it's on the east edge of Lot 6.
East edge of lot 6. Okay, east edge. All right, dedicate 20-foot trail easement along east edge of lot 6.
And condition 2, you would strike the second to last sentence, the sentence that says the Bernard Drive improvements would terminate in an asphalt, gravel, and surface cul-de-sac.
Oh, excellent. All right.
Okay, with those changes and conditions, I think
we got it.
We could use a motion. Kevin Cross, would you like to state your motion?
Yes. Let's see what we've got here. In case S12380, Pellinor subdivision lots 1 through 10, block 1, tracks F2, F3, and block 2. Approval of the plat for 24 months subject to the following conditions. 1, 2, but 2 to be modified, removing the sentence, the Bernard Drive improvement shall terminate at an asphalt gravel surface cul-de-sac. So removing that sentence. 3, 4, 4A, 4B, 5, 6, 7, and 7 to amended to include the sentence, dedicate a 20-foot trail easement on the east edge of lot 6. 8, 9, 10, 11, 11A, 1 and 2, as well as 11B and 12A and A1.
Are you sure you wanted to keep 6 in there?
6, show temporary turnaround easement at oh, thank you. And removed, and removal of 6.
Okay.
Removal of a temporary turnaround.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And with that, that motion has been approved by or seconded by Becky Lipsum. And would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, as amended, I believe that the approval list reflects the discussion amongst the board, and I will support it.
Thank you. Any other findings? Is there any opposition to the motion on the floor? Seeing no opposition, the motion passes. We'll now turn to case F1B, or matter F1B, which is case S12398, Turnigan View Estate subdivision.
We'll get there. Numbers going around. Do I understand it that they're not granted the variance for not constructing Bernard Road through the length of the subdivision? Is that correct?
That's correct.
That's correct. The plat's approved, but they got to put the road all the way through.
May we have staff's presentation?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Ooh, staff is? That's a good job right there. Oh, we're going to take a short recess. You need 5 minutes? We're going to take a short recess of 5 minutes. Off the record. We are now resuming, and we'll take up case S12378, Yosemite TLO subdivision, tract 1 through 5. May I have a motion to postpone indefinitely case S12378? Kevin Cross, would you please state your motion?
Postpone indefinitely case 12378.
Thank you. And that's been seconded by Valerie Ritz. And I would find that the request has been made by Alaska Mental Health Trust Authority to postpone the case indefinitely due to vacating right-of-way issues. Is there any opposition to the motion on the floor? Seeing no opposition, the motion passes. So we'll now turn our attention to case S12398, Turnigan View Estate subdivision. May we have staff's presentation?
Yes, Mr. Chair. When this portion, the subject portion of the Turnigan View Estate subdivision was platted in 1994, there was a condition of approval, and it was a note indicating that it was note number 4, which read, Lot 5, Block 5 shall access Carlin Circle only. Carlin Circle has since been renamed to Cutlass Circle. The homeowners state that they are requesting the removal of the plat note to allow access through East Wind Drive. The homeowners further note that the plat note was placed in 1994 when upper and lower East Wind Drive had not been extended to connect behind Block 5, Lot 5. This area has since been developed to include a road, which is East Wind, with houses on either side of the extended road as shown on Plat 96-96. Removal of the restriction will allow building of a paved parking area for a recreational vehicle, which is currently not possible from our elevated, narrow access through Cutlass Circle. The Planning Department received 2 public comments in opposition to the plat note removal request. The comments are in your packet. Since the staff report was written, there have been 2 additional comments that came in late. Those were also in opposition. There were some agency comments, which are on page 2 of the staff report. Plat 94-137 restricted access to Block 5, Lot 5 at that time because legal and physical access did not exist. 2 years later, Plat 96-96 showed the completion of East Wind Drive. The subject lot is double-fronted as it has street access on 2 sides of the lot. The traffic department had no objection to the request to remove the plat note, as secondary access is to a local street, not a collector road. There is a fence along East Wind Drive, which appears to be 6 feet in height, and this is on the property owner's lot. The fence will have to be reduced in height to 4 feet or removed in accordance with AMC 2107-080H33, which is the fences section of the code. There was some comments from the homeowners raising objection to this, and it had to do with their homeowners' covenants. And I just wanted to make clear to the board that the municipality has no involvement in any discussions between the property owners and the homeowners association. The municipality is outside that discussion, and any covenants really have nothing to do with Title 21 and how we review the requests before us. And the Planning Department recommends approval of the request to remove plat note number 4 from plat 94-137 for Lot 5, Block 5 in the Turnagain View Estate subdivision, subject to the 4 conditions on page 3 of the staff report.
Thank you.
And I do want to mention, just because there may be a question coming on this issue, is that if the plat note is removed, then the homeowners would have to apply for and get a driveway permit. And during that time, a lot of the issues that the homeowners association or the neighbors had raised concerning crossing the sidewalk, that would be addressed, and any easements and drainage easements, those will all be addressed at that point. The only utility that had any comments regarding this case was from Tugach Electric, and they are requesting that a letter of non-objection be obtained from them, so they will take a look at it should the plat note be removed. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for staff? Mark Seward.
Through the chair, Ms. Ferguson, on page 8 of our packet, the 2 public comments, I just wanted to clarify one of them. It seemed unclear whether the Turnagain View Estates HOA approved or denied this request. Is there a definitive answer on that?
I don't know really anything more about it than what it says here. It looks like the Homeowners Association denied the request.
But then, maybe I'm misreading the second one, Diane Schellerbaum, her last 3 sentences, the reply request was correctly approved by the Board of Directors of the Turnagain View Homeowner Association, and she is evidently the secretary.
Yeah.
Of that. So one says approved, one says denied. So I was kind of.
Well, I think it's saying, let's see, current additional. Yeah, we have no information on. It seems like the Huffman O'Malley Community Council objects to the replat request, but then it goes on to say that there's a disagreement among the neighbors, and please confirm that the replat request was correctly approved by the board. See, what the Board of Directors of the Homeowners Association, whether they vote for it or against it, it really has nothing to do with the municipal process in Title 21. We don't get involved at all. We have no purview. We have no involvement whatsoever with the Homeowners Association.
I agree, because I've appeared before them, but they are part of the public comment, and the petitioner is normally required to appear before them for their input. So I was trying to see what that HOA opinion was.
Through the chair, Mr. Seward, if I can suggest when the petitioner or petitioner's representative makes their presentation, maybe they can elaborate on what has transpired with both the association and the community council.
Thank you. Sounds like a good idea. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff at this time? Seeing no questions, we'll now open the matter up to the, well, I guess we need to have the petitioner or their representative.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the board. My name is Tuchenda John Ebejimba, and
Can you spell your last name?
GBEJIMBA.
Thank you, sir.
All right. I'm not going to go through. I think she did a very good job trying to summarize what we're here for. We're here to request the removal of the plat note, okay? And just to give some background here, we did have some communications with the members of the Homeowners Association. We did meet with the architectural committee and did get an approval from them that they okayed the project. And we did meet with the chairman of the Homeowners Association that told us that the first approval doesn't mean much, that we still have to come to the MUNI to get the plat this thing removed, and also showed us the covenants of the homeowners, which we don't have any problems to meet. Okay. So we are here today to just request that the plat note be removed.
Thank you. Don Porter.
Did you, through the chair, did you bring a written approval from the HOA or anything like that?
A written approval from the architectural committee. We have it on email.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I would just like to add that after the approval, we did receive another email from, after the approval, we did receive another email from the president of the Homeowners Association, and in that email, he refreshed our memory on Article 2, Section 15, and basically the email just said that there were additional screening that needed to be done before we could carry out whatever improvements we wanted to make, and we have no problems trying to meet whatever standards they would like us to meet.
Okay. Do we have any other questions for the petitioner? Thank you. You have 8 minutes for rebuttal. Are there any members of the public wishing to speak tonight on this matter? Please come forward.
Hi, good evening. My name is Zach Mohundro, Mohundro. I'm the president of Turnagain View Estates Homeowners Association. We had just a little background on the approval and some neighborhood information. So we had a homeowners meeting February 8th. We had a lot of feedback about the enforcement of our covenants, conditions, and restrictions, the CC&Rs, and a strong will to that a lot of feedback that that process was not being vetted as thoroughly as it had been in the past. So we had the new board met March 6th, and that's one of the items we took up to address. The enforcement of those CC&Rs falls to our Architectural Control Committee. They view the recommendations and ultimately assess, make recommendations, and then approve or reject based on those CC&Rs. Looking back at the request, we did receive the request from the homeowners to put in a gate for RV access. Going back, looking at that request, the gate was well documented, which was approved. The RV pad there was discussion about it, but it wasn't ultimately, there was a bit of a question of where it was going to be. It was starting up by the fence. We discussed maybe moving it further back. Part of that reasoning being the Article 2, Section 15, the covenants the homeowners referenced, being vehicles including but not limited to automobiles, trucks, campers, and recreational vehicles, whether operable or inoperable, and all boats, snow machines, and other machinery shall be kept in a garage, other closed structure, or screen so that the item is not visible from the public streets, an adjoining lot, or a nearby house. Fencing, landscaping, or natural vegetation may act as the screen. The purpose of this provision is to keep stored vehicles and equipment out of sight. None of the aforementioned shall be used as a domicile or residence, either permanently or temporarily. So there was some discussion on where the RV plot was going to be, but it was not laid out and documented specifically. So the approval, looking back, was more for the gate access. Going forward, the board wants to respect the rights of their homeowners, but also respect the integrity of the others. At the meeting, there was a lot of pushback on, like I said, a couple of RVs have shown up, and they'd like to see us return to a bit more enforcement of what's allowed inside. Unfortunately, their property is somewhat recessed, very visible to all the homes around it, and east wind, which is where a large part of the contention is, I believe. Looking at the RV plot going right there behind that fence facing east wind, concerns of the mention of the 4-foot fence proposed by the right-of-way section. We have a requirement for 6 feet. We're also giving the size, the proposed size. It looks like it's going to be a very large pad. The board will probably, if approved here, the board will probably ask the ACC to go back and request make a request for some screening as referenced in the parking and vehicle restrictions, because right now it'd just be very visible. That's what most of the contention is about. So again, the board we'd like to support all homeowners wanting to make improvements to their property. We feel additional consideration might be made here if they're open to screening, which I'm happy to address. But there's a little feedback on that. I won't go on with the HOA rules since not necessarily pertinent to the muni.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? So in this homeowners association, you do have other homeowners that have RVs?
Yes, sir. They've been made on an individual case-by-case basis. So some of the feedback is a bit that's become a bit lax. Not necessarily the approved, but we've had 1 or 2 show up that, as a board, we're going to go back and try to address and get them into our HOA codes.
And does the homeowners association agree that there's been a change in circumstances? There is a new road that's accessible from this lot now?
Yes, I believe so. I'm relatively new, just been here a few years. But yes, previously, I guess Eastwind was more of a back road, or it wasn't going to be there until they developed the far side, which is over by South High School. So we recognize that yes, there has been a change with a new through street there. I believe from our perspective, there's been 1 approval for a back gateway entrance, a backyard entrance, and that's off of the Cagney, a side kind of alleyway street.
Thank you. Mr. Porter.
Yes, through the chair. Would you agree that this is a HOA issue and MOA shouldn't be approving or denying access?
MOA, I believe it's y'all's responsibility to remove that restriction. I don't think the HOA can necessarily impact that, but yes, it then falls to the HOA to enforce our covenants and restrictions outside of what's approved by the city. Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, you're okay with removal of the plat restriction?
I believe this is the only home that could be impacted by this action. I don't think there's any other homes facing the backyard facing east wind. So I think this is really a one-off.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none. Appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any other members of the public wishing to speak tonight?
Hi, I'm Kelly Lynch.
Hi, Kelly.
First off, I was not notified of this at all. We, I guess, share a back fence from where they're wanting to put a motorhome. And I don't want to look out my backyard and look out of my 25 windows that face that side of the house and look at a motorhome. And it would deter from our property value. And we are contemplating maybe possibly selling, and I don't want to have it. I mean, 5 years ago when I bought the house, if I would have seen a motorhome out there, I wouldn't have bought in that subdivision. And I do believe that, we all have, I guess, issues with parking and recreational vehicles, and we all make, accommodations. We have stuff in storage. We bring it out when we want to use it. We put it back in storage. We don't keep it on our property. Or we do park it for 24 hours, whatever the municipality codes are. But I just want to let you know that we are opposed on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, or any other people wishing to speak tonight?
Good evening. My name is Mari Lloyd. I'm on plot 6, and we too back the proposed property change. My concern is that in the statement that was presented, it was said that there could not be access from Cutlass Circle in order to make this pad. And the photograph provided to you, the board, is, in my opinion, misleading, because there is at least 20 feet between our property and the property that wants, and then the owners that want to have access from their backyard. They could indeed access from the front. There is over 20 feet between our property lines. And I do not see the need in removing the plat note when it could indeed be accessed from the front. I'm asking that the municipality please review the correct photograph and distance and reconsider the fact that it could be done from the front, from Cutlass Circle, and no plat change is necessary. I oppose the plat change.
Thank you. Can I get you to spell your first name?
Mari.
Thank you. And do we have any questions for Mary? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Are there any other members of the public wishing to speak tonight?
My name is Roger McCann, 3633 Eastwind Drive. And I also oppose the change for a reason, or my reasoning is the way it's worded. If Muni passes it, it's tacit approval to put that motorhome in there. All of us, and you can see in the picture that's in the package that the home that's right across the street from where that photo's taken is our next door neighbor. We're to the south of that, to the right. There's about 9 homes that will be looking straight at the motorhome. The HOA covenants, as Sharon says, are independent, but they call for screening. If you look at the way that picture is marked, there's absolutely no way to put screening against the fence. That fence is common with the Lynches and with the Lloyds, okay? So what you have is you'd end up with a large motorhome with looking at the side of it. I have put in written comments in. They were the ones that were turned in Monday there in the late section. I hope you have had a chance to read them. I could go through them if you need to, but I probably wouldn't. But my biggest thing is that if you approve this, it will be almost an open checkbook to go ahead with the RV storage. I personally, my wife and I have a large motorhome. It's stored off-site. The majority of the people in the subdivision who are motorhome users store at a local yard, take their unit in. They can be there 24 hours legally by the covenants, load, do what you want to do, and then go and coming back the same thing, unloading that 24-hour period. That's what we do. And my motorhome was on the subdivision last summer a couple times, and I washed it. That's about it. The 4-foot fence would also be in violation of our covenants. It gets into a real touchy situation where if you tell them to put it in a 4-foot fence along there, then all of a sudden everybody else's fences are in limbo. I agree with Mari when she says that there is an area on the front yard. Yeah, it would mean messing up the front yard to get into that area, but it would allow screening. Could be screening, spruce trees or something planted along to provide the screening from Eastwind and from the Lynch and Lloyd yards, and it would also protect us. So given the comments that you've gotten in writing, Fred put in some utility conditions, but I guess they've been discussed with the utility companies. But again, request that you deny this change. Oh, one other thing, in the staff packet, it says that Eastwind is not a collector. It's not a DeArmond or a Huffman, but Eastwind has an extreme amount of traffic. You cannot believe what we're picking up coming through from Kempton Hills, the old Turnigan View and other areas. Eastwind is a main gut getting out to the Mainsail and then out to DeArmond. There's extreme traffic coming through there, much more than people realize. So when the comment in there that it is not a collector, it is not a recognized collector, but it is.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Roger McCann?
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other members of the public wishing to speak tonight? Would you like to use your time for rebuttal at this point?
I just want to thank my very good neighbors for their courage to, be able to come here and to voice their own opinions. And some of the opinions that they voice, we have to consider that too. But we still want to go ahead to remove this plat.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board at this point? Well, the public hearing is now closed, and the matter rests with the board. May I have a motion to approve request to remove the plat note number 4, subject to conditions 1 through 4? Don Porter, would you like to state your motion?
Yes, I move to approve in the case number S12398, Turnigan View Estates plat note removal, to approve the department recommendations of 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I intend to support this motion.
Thank you, and that motion has been seconded by Kevin Cross. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Given the testimony from the president of the HOA, this very clearly seems to me to be an HOA issue that can be resolved on a neighbor-to-neighbor approach. Rather than having the municipality denying it without, and in a way, denying due process for the neighborhood to make their decision with their own homeowners association. So that is the crux of my support for this motion.
Okay. Kevin Cross?
Yes. To echo what Don Porter stated, there's levels of bureaucracy, and what we do in the Platting Board is separate from what you as homeowners and HOAs may do. And your laws, your rules can change, height, fences, colors of houses, those kind of things. We're dealing directly with what an individual can legally do with the land that they own, and then the homeowners association votes as to how they want to encroach that. We may approve it, and you may choose to fine him so ridiculously that he'll never want to park a motorhome there. That's the right of the homeowners association. But just understand, as a Platting Board, we're dealing with a different, we're baking a cake. You guys can frost it any way you want. So I'm going to vote to approve it simply based on the merits by which the Platting Board approves an individual to apply to access the back of their property. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I would like to make the findings that there has been a change in circumstances between the date when the plat was originally made and the request that's being made now. There is now access on a road that has been built since the original plat. A change in circumstances does create an opportunity to come in and make a request such as this. It's also possible that the homeowner plans on merely using the pad for storage within the 24-hour period of time. Even under the Homeowners Association's own regulations, that would be allowed. And I don't know how it's any different than if it's on a driveway in the pad in the back or if it's a driveway out front. And whether he's able to effectively screen it or not, I don't know. I know that there are people in our neighborhood that do have them and come up with effective screening. So I'm going to approve the motion. Is there any opposition to the motion on the floor? Seeing no opposition, the motion passes. That is all of our matters tonight, and we will